meeting on the 9th of January 2024. Welcome all. Before we start off the meeting, I think we should mention the sad passing of Councillor Sheila Penry over the Christmas holidays. We will not have a minute silence at this moment. We'll do that when we have full council, okay? But just spare a thought for Sheila and all her family. Okay, thank you. Also, I understand Dan Thomas has been taken ill, Councillor Dan Thomas, and we wish him a speedy recovery. Thank you all. For the purposes of declarations, I'd like to confirm that we are not going to scrutinise anything on the Cabinet papers today. We're just on the budget, the forward-working plan and any urgent items, okay? Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? None. Thank you all. Agenda item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes are attached at page 5 to 7 of the agenda pack. If you feel there's an accurate record of the meeting, could I please, anybody got any questions on the minutes of the meeting, please? Okay. Could I then have a proposer and a seconder to approve these minutes, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan.
Happy to second.
Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Percy. These minutes have been approved. Okay, thank you. On to agenda item 4, the budget for 2024-25. Before we move into this, I have an indication that Noelwen would like to speak before we start, please. Over to you, Noelwen.
Diolch Cadeirydd a prynawn da aelodau. Good afternoon, members. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just briefly from myself. And so what you have in front of you this afternoon are the proposals from the Strategy and Corporate Services Department. The team have been working incredibly hard since last summer to try and identify the proposals in front of you this afternoon. They amount to just under 3% of the overall budget for the department, so just about £610,000. Now, you will have heard already mentioned in previous budget seminars and discussions that one of the underlying principles regarding the way we've approached identifying these savings has been to safeguard jobs and the services we deliver. Now, the services we deliver as a Strategy and Corporate Services Department are very internal facing primarily. You have digital services, organisational development, people management, legal services and financial services. So they very much support the workings of the authority and support the frontline service departments in order for them to deliver their services to the residents of Neath Talbot Council. So there's a variation of proposals before you. They range from kind of some remodelling of services to release vacant posts. A number of initiatives there around increased income generation opportunities that are being looked at that include potentially increasing SLAs and putting a range of new contracts in place, and also reviewing the current contracts that we have as well. So, as I said, all my heads of services are here this afternoon to take any questions, and we look forward to the scrutiny of the proposals we've put it before you. Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Thank you.
Diolch. Thank you, Noelwen. The report included on our scrutiny agendas the consultation on the 2024-25 budget proposals. We will today be looking at the elements that fall under the remit of this committee. Your comments from this meeting will form part of the formal consultation response for the budget. Members are reminded of your obligation as part of the budget consultation process to put forward any other proposals for budget savings which are not included within the attached report, so that officers can give them consideration as soon as possible. Can I ask Hugh Jones if you have anything additional to add to the report, please?
No, nothing to add, Chair. Thank you very much. I think Noelwen's covered the purpose of today, so happy to move on, Chair. Diolch. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. We'll now move to members' questions. We're going to take it a line at a time, okay? Making sure that we are thorough this afternoon. We're going to look at each one in turn, and we'll have members' questions, and obviously you'll be able to indicate if you want to ask other questions and go along. First, I have an indication from SES1. This one's the permanent closure of the public of the cash desk at Neath and Talbot Civic Centres, and I have Councillor Rebecca Phillips first, please.
Diolch Cadeirydd, pnawn da pawb. Yeah, it's just asking really if we've had any public feedback regarding this and what alternative provision is in place, please. Thank you. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Hugh, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Phillips. So just to clarify this budget line, this actually is now reflecting the decision that's already been taken by Cabinet back in November. So I brought a report to Cabinet in November requesting permission to close the cash offices due to the fact they'd been shut since the pandemic in March 2020. So in that report, I set out the consultation that had been carried out, the number of people visiting the cash desk to see what impact it would have. And obviously members took that decision then in November. Since then, I'm not aware of any further feedback from the public in terms of the fact the cash desks are still no longer there. In terms of alternative arrangements, we have expanded our relationship with the post office to make sure people can pay virtually anything in the post office or over the phone or over the internet. I am aware from the pre-briefing that there may be certain things that people can't, so I will look into that if the relevant member wants to raise that with me as well. But no, certainly not in terms of any negative feedback, Chair. So thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Phillips, is that okay? Thank you. Councillor Percy, are you going to raise it direct with Hugh? Is that okay? Or do you want to come back in now?
No, I'll pick it up with you outside the meeting. That's no problem. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy, please.
No, it's already been covered. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy. Moving along, we're moving next to SES 4. This one is explore potential to provide services under an SLA to support regeneration projects. And Councillor Sean Percy, please.
Yeah, dear Cadeirydd, thank you. I just wanted clarity on what this budget line was. So what support would the service be providing, and is it an internal support to the regeneration team? Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Can we bring Sheila in, please?
Hi, and thanks, Councillor Percy. Yeah, so this relates to the provision of HR services to some of the regeneration projects across environment. So it relates to things like providing job evaluation, recruitment support, and the provision of general HR support.
Thank you, Sheena. Okay, Councillor Percy.
Would it be okay if I come back briefly, Chair?
No problem, Councillor Percy.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, I suppose, if you can give an example of a circumstance where that would be required. Obviously, we have a team in regeneration, so is this where we're embarking on a project where other staff come on board for a temporary basis? Is that what we're covering?
Yeah, so it's supporting some of the external facing projects that the Regen team are supporting, where they are bringing in additional staffing. So, for example, at the moment, I'm providing a lot of support to the Celtic Freeport. So I'm charging my time back to the Celtic Freeport and bringing in some income into the team in that way. So there's a number of officers who are supporting externally funded projects like that, and we are bringing the income back into the service.
Thank you, Sheena. Are we happy, Councillor Percy?
Yeah, deal. Thank you. That's
deal. Thank you. Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah. Not on SEF4, it's SC5. I've got a question.
Okay, no problem. Let's move along then. SES5. Oh, sorry, are there any other questions on that issue? On to SES5 then. The review of the staffing structure. First up is Councillor Rebecca Phillips, please.
Diolch Cadeirydd. Yeah, I'm just looking for some further detail on this, please, if possible, Sheena, and also just to confirm that we're not looking at any job losses. Diolch.
Sheena?
Thank you. So the 2 posts that have currently been identified are currently vacant jobs. So there'll be no impact on any incumbent post holders. There will also be no knock-on impact on service delivery. We're able to continue service delivery without these posts.
Thank you, Sheena. Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, just confirming again that there'll be no job losses then.
So there will be job losses. So we are deleting jobs, but there are no incumbent post holders. So there won't be an impact on people or current staff, I should say. Once you lose a job, I suppose there is an impact in terms of future people who could have applied for that post, but there's no impact on current staff.
Thank you, Sheena. Are you happy, Councillor Phillips?
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Diolch.
Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's similar to Councillor Phillips. There's always reviews taking place of staffing structures. It's evident from not only what's presented to us today, but from throughout the whole of the budget. What isn't clear in some of these areas is it's the Appendix 4 is savings and income generation. That's not clearly identified within the report, and it definitely lacks detail. If we are, should I say, if you are suggesting by cutting 2 members of staff that there is a savings of £123,000, that sounds as if they're very high level staff. I can see you shaking your head, Sina. So that's one question that needs to be clarified. How are we saving £123,000 on just 2 members of staff? And this question will be repeated further on in this scrutiny about the extra pressure that comes with losing members of staff by deleting posts that are not currently occupied. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Sheena, please.
So, Councillor Jones, I've identified 2 posts that can be cut against this 123k commitment. They don't equate to 123k. Other posts will be identified, but they haven't been identified as yet. But there is no intention to place people at risk or have an impact on current members of staff as a result of this. The posts that I've identified won't have a knock-on impact on other members of staff. One post has never been filled, so it's an apprenticeship post. It's a shame that we're not filling the post, but there will be no knock-on impact on other members of staff or in terms of service delivery. And the other post has been vacant for some time. And again, we're confident that that's not going to have an impact on other staff.
Thank you, Sheena. Can I bring Nolwenn in as well now, please?
Diolch, Neath. Yeah, so you are right, Councillor Jones, dotted throughout all the budget proposals across all directorates are staffing reviews and potential restructures that could release vacant posts. I think it's a sign of where we are, having been in austerity since about 2008, 2009, where a lot of the low-hanging fruit has been taken away. And, you know, the longer these years of austerity go on, the harder it is going to become to identify future savings. And obviously, the largest percentage of our budget is our staffing budget. Therefore, what we have to do moving forward is to make better use of technology and transformation as we move through the following years. And it'll be no different for next year, where we look to automate as much of the work that we do so that we can eventually potentially release further vacant posts. So what we aim to do by that transformation is not to put additional stresses and pressures on the staff that are in posts, but to look at better ways of delivering the services that we do, so that moving forward, hopefully what you'd expect to see then by automation, AI, robotics engineering, etc., that we can continue to deliver a high quality of service, but look at releasing vacant posts as and when they become available. Diolch.
Thank you, Nolwenn. Councillor Jones, would you like to come back?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the clarity in relation that this 123,000 is not just on 2 posts, but again, the reduction of an apprenticeship scheme. I can understand if it's never been filled, but there is a repeat again of that in another department's area. And slowly and surely, if we've got no apprenticeships coming forward, that will adversely affect us in a recruitment process for qualified people in the long term, which gives me cause for concern. I am concerned further to our movement of digital, because digital is not always inclusive, and we do have people in our communities that are digitally excluded for a variety of reasons, whether that's cost, whether that's age, whether that's an acceptance of technology. And sometimes to remove this, to move towards digital, isn't always the best thing. It's because it's only a one-liner, Sheena, the detail wasn't there, which is why it's being scrutinised to this degree. £123,000. You've identified 2 staffing posts. Have you got any further vacancies that would fall within this gap? Again, I can see you shaking your head. Therefore, that must mean redundancies if you've got no vacancies to cull, and you're looking for further savings in the staffing review. Could you clarify that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'll bring Nolwenn back in now, please.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Yeah, so I'm taking a directorate view with regards to the staffing situation to ensure that we do deliver the necessary savings by the start of the financial year for 24-25. So as it says, there is a review taking place. It's ongoing, and we are currently still working on identifying which vacant posts. So like I said, there will be vacant posts. There won't be any staff involved at all with regards to this piece of work. So they are all vacant posts that we're identifying across the directorate. Some of them you will have seen with regards to digital services as well. And noting your point on apprenticeships, it is the difficult situation we face in terms of trying to identify. So there are no easy choices when it comes to looking at what vacant posts we do relinquish from the structures. And you are right, and I note in terms of the apprenticeships, how important they are for that kind of staff continuation within the workforce. Just to pick up on your point as well with regards to the digital, and my references were to a lot of the internal processes that we have within the council. We need to streamline them and ensure that we can provide and deliver them far more effectively and efficiently as well. Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Thank you, Nolwenn. Yeah, I think that this is the difficult situation we're in at the moment. The current situation leaves us with very limited options, I think, apart from redundancies, I think. Councillor Jones?
Yeah, no one can argue with what Nolwenn is saying. We've been at this for 12 years with austerity. The long-hanging fruit went a long time ago. But just to give an example, within democratic services, I think there is either 2 or 3 current officers, some of which have moved on, that started as apprentices within this authority and obtained permanent employment. Very difficult choices being made in very difficult circumstances. I don't think I can say any more, but I've got serious concerns about any form of staff reviews if they're not fully encompassed. And my concern is whether these savings will actually be met or not. They're great on paper, but the unintended consequences, unfortunately, we don't know. I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Next up, I have Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy, please.
No, I'm okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy. Next up, I have Councillor Carol Clement-Williams, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, to follow on from what's been said already, I can see where Rob is coming from. It's the fact that 2 posts have been identified. They don't come to 123,000. So where did 123,000 come from? And are we saying, right, we need to lose X amount, so we're making it fit, if you know what I mean? And I'm not being disrespectful, and I know it's very difficult, but I mean, I worked somewhere where they said for post scores, we're not going to refill it. And it does have an impact on the people that are left behind, or has had an impact in my experience on the people left behind, because they have had to take up more work. So just those 2, I understand where you're coming from. I don't need a huge answer, but they are concerns I have.
Thank you, Councillor Clement-Williams. Back to Nolwenn, please.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon, and take your points. I've already.
Councillor Clement
referenced-
Williams, no,
Sorry.
It's all right.
Henry Williams, apologies. Yeah, so I've made the points I've already made, Councillor, with regards to this. And I do take your point. You know, when you don't fill vacant posts, you know, there's often a chance that it adds more pressure onto the teams, and that is something that we're trying to manage through the management of change process. But take on your points with regards to you know, it's not an ideal situation that we're in. It is difficult decisions to be made. I think if I refer back to the kind of the principles that we've based these efficiencies on, which is not to lose any staff and to protect our service delivery models, and I think that's what we're trying to achieve here through these difficult decisions. Councillor.
Thank you, Nolwenn. Are we happy with that, Councillor Clement Williams?
Yes, Chair, and I do understand, you know, we've been through this a number of times, haven't we? I do understand, and I do understand it's difficult, but it would be remiss of us not to mention our concerns, I believe.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. On to SES 6, please. Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's to point out what I believe is a grammatical error and to ask a question. Where it says also reducing the number of licenses, it then moves on to say more to generic. I think that should be moved to generic licenses instead of a license for each member of staff. I'd like clarity in relation to that statement, because the only thing that I can think of that you could move to there is the removal of the DPS license and go for generic license issued by a committee. So I can't think of any other way that generic licenses could operate, because all the others, you know, personal license, SIA, taxi personal license, etc. And I know it's a small figure there, but can I have some clarity in relation to the statements that I've just outlined?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. We'll bring Craig Egan on this one, please.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Yeah, pick up the typo on that. Absolutely correct. It should be move. What it's actually relating to are the legal resources that our solicitors use when they're undertaking legal research in respect of various matters. So when they want to access updated legislation, precedents, guidance, whatever the case may be. At the moment, we have one license per solicitor. Obviously, they're not all being used ultimately at the same time. So what we're trying to do is link in with our resource providers and negotiate, say, 10 licenses, which can just be used then across the board by any solicitor at the time, instead of having one license per person. So it's not in relation to the licensing world and the particular processes that we have there, but more the software that the solicitors use ultimately to undertake their legal research.
Many thanks, Craig. Councillor Jones, you happy with the response?
Yeah, so the reality is we're not talking about the actual issuing of the licenses from our legal department. We're actually talking about the individual solicitors or legals being licensed to use, like Microsoft under a certain thing, or access criminal records and that sort of thing. We're talking about your individual staff license to operate systems, not the individual licenses that are issued out into the community.
Absolutely correct. Yeah. So we, for example, have a system called LexisNexis, which will give us access to up-to-date legislation. So whenever, as a solicitor wants to be able to get that, they'll just use one of the generic licenses in place instead of having a personal one ultimately to them for use. So it's just the tool that we use to keep ourselves up to date in respect of all the forthcoming changes in legislation.
Yeah, that clarifies it, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. We're moving along a few places now to SES number 9. Just getting hold of it myself. Okay, Registry Office, this one. Councillor Carol Clement Williams, please.
Thanks, Chair. I know that during my tenure as Cabinet member, they did an awful lot of work in that area, and they've been thinking outside the box. So, you know, it's great to see that they're continuing. But just concern really about what we're doing. I know we probably are, but just some peace of mind that we're not pricing ourselves out of the market.
Thank you, Carol. Councillor Carol Clement Williams. Over to Craig, please.
You can come in, Williams. So what this actually relates to is looking at how we can maximise the service in the register office and then offer additional choice ultimately to individuals. So we have a marriage room which is called our statutory marriage room, and by law we can only charge in the region of £40 for usage of that particular room. However, we've understood that there is a market potentially where people would want larger venues ultimately for weddings, because we can only hold roughly about 25 people in that marriage room. We're trying to find ways in which we can maximise the opportunity. So we've managed to identify a room within the Neath Annex where the register office is based, which could probably accommodate within the region of 50 to 60. So what we're looking to do is offer that larger room, which could be at an additional cost over and above what the statutory fee ultimately will be. So it's designed to offer additional choice. So if somebody only wants to go to the smaller room and wants to go to the statutory fee, that's still open to them. There'll be no change in that regard. But anyone who wants to pay that little bit more for a larger venue, there'll be an option that we'll be able to accommodate. And we're going to look to see how we can add some added extras ultimately to as well. So, for example, allowing the hybrid element, utilising some of the technology we've got so people could watch from afar, recordings, music, etc. So we're going to continue to try and expand that with the aim of trying to offer more services.
Thank you, Greg. Sounds excellent, actually. Councillor Clement Williams, you happy?
That's the exact kind of innovation I was thinking of when I opened my comment. They've been very good at thinking outside the box there and trying new and dynamic things, and I'm glad it's carrying on. They do really good work.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you, Craig. That sounds really exciting. Moving along to SCS 10, and I'll bring back in again, please, Councillor Clement Williams, please.
Remember I said my thing wasn't working, but I can type in it. It keeps disappearing.
No worries. Let me just remind you, it's the introduction of new fees for licensed premises, it is.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So basically, again, just wondering how much they would rise by, and that we're not going to be sending businesses under if the increase is too high.
Great.
Okay, thank you again, Councillor Clement Williams. So this is actually a new regime that's come into being from 2024, and it aims to replace the existing legislation relating to cosmetic piercing, tattooing, electrolysis, semi-permanent skill colouring and acupuncture. Whereas previously there was just a registration scheme where people needed to notify the local authority that they were going to be undertaking that level of work, there's now been replaced by what we call a mandatory licensing scheme. So they have to now be officially licensed in order to provide these services. So they have a new charging regime that's ultimately being introduced across the board. And if they don't apply for the license, then by law, they're not going to be able to actually undertake that work. The fees themselves are going to be operated on an all Wales level. So what this will ultimately end up seeing is an expansion of the work that would be considered by the licensing committee. So if there were ever any disputes in respect of the licensing regime regarding some of these premises, then it will be before the licensing committee to consider whether the license should be granted, revoked, whatever the case may be. I would add we're going to be giving some full training to the licensing committee in the consideration of these issues as we go forward, because it's a new regime for both officers and members. So Neil Chappell, our licensing manager, is chair of one of the national forums that's been leading on this area of work. So it is a new fee that we're going to be introducing. There's obviously probably going to be some challenge ultimately from the market, but from a legislative perspective, we have to introduce it, we have to comply, and if a business wishes to operate that level of service, it will now be a mandatory license that they have to apply for, and it will be a 3-year license then, where a renewal fee is paid after that at the same time.
Thank you, Craig. That another good point. I think this one another good initiative. Councillor Clement Williams, would you like to come back?
Yeah, I'm really glad I asked those 2 questions. I've just learned a lot. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Moving along to SCS 11. Councillor Rob Jones on this one, please.
Yeah, can I say, Chair, I was really impressed with Mr. Griffiths' roll off the tongue, all those premises that have now got legislation. Of course, unless he's reading, but I wouldn't dream. He's so knowledgeable that, you know, he just retains that information. Moving to SCS 11, the increase in work capability for recharging. There's a lot of, I know it's only 7,000, but my concern here is the recharging for services, particularly with places like Margam Crematorium, if there is going to be an additional increase to services, town and community councils, etc., then that'll have a knock-on effect to people within our community. Sutra is almost more or less an arm's length thing of the council. Margam Joint Crem is sets its own fees and charges, as do the town and community councils. What type of recharging are you looking at? Even though it's a small amount, what type of recharging increases are you looking at that will have a direct effect on the organisations? I can understand Titarian and the other RSLs and that sort of thing. I'm more concerned with the stuff that directly involves the council and the community councils.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. I'll bring Craig back in on this one, please.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, for that commendation, but I got to thank Neil Chappell because he voted all down for me so I could read it to you during the course of the meeting. So I'll pass my thanks on to him for writing such a detailed note on it. What this is actually relating to is there will always be occasions where, as a legal section, we're requested by some parties to undertake some legal work for them. It's not something that we do across the board at all times, but there have been occasions in the last year, and those opportunities are actually increasing, where town and community councils come to the local authority and ask if they can represent them in some non-contentious legal work across the board in various matters. So it could be advising on a property matter, asking to look at something in respect of some operational issues that they're dealing with. And what we've seen over the last 18 months is that level of work has ultimately been increasing, which we've never really budgeted for. So I take that as a credit that people do like coming to us for that level of work. We offer competitive rates ultimately compared to maybe what some private solicitor firms would be. So they've come to us and given us our expertise in sort of the local government world. So where we talk there about additional work being recharged, it's that if and when there are requests ultimately made to us, then we will undertake that work, and it's an hourly fee effectively that we charge for work that we complete. And I've tried to benchmark those figures over the last couple of years as to where that level of demand ultimately comes from. Hence, we've set on the 7K. The Sutra work, what that relates to is there's been increasing demands, for example, where they look at additional contractual arrangements, where additional funds have been passed to them by Welsh Government. That in turn has a knock-on effect sometimes from the procurement advice they need or the contractual advice. So we provide that additional work there. Margam Crematorium, there is no specific work ultimately for Margam Crematorium. My reason for including it in the report there was just so you could see the wide range of individuals and sections that we ultimately charge from. But to give you an example there could be a scenario during the course of the year where we could be renegotiating a contract, for example, in respect of a service provision. It may need a little bit of legal advice ultimately associated with that. So sometimes the hourly rate that would take us to actually undertake that work, we charge back to the crematorium in a small way. So the 7K just roughly tries to encapsulate all of those areas of work as a basis in which to take forward.
Thanks, Craig. Very clear. Councillor Jones, you happy with the response?
Yeah, 2 points, if I may, Chair. One, so in essence, for clarity, you were saying it's a free market. All these organisations could, in fact, go to any commercial outlet and have a comparison in relation to the charging. And it's not an SLA. It is as and when demand service that is provided by yourselves to these organisations for the expert advice that you would get at any solicitor.
Absolutely, yes to both counts.
Thank you.
Thank you both. No other indications or questions there. We're moving along now to SCS 14, please. And I have Councillor Charlotte Galsworthy, please.
I'm on the phone a minute, the hospital, so just carry on, yeah?
Okay, thank you. Moving along, anybody else on SCS 14, sorry? SCS 15 then, please. This is, next one up is Councillor Clement Williams, please.
Sorry, Chair, did you say 15?
Yes, number 15. You're asking about the fee increase, I think, was it? Or 15 is the registry office, and you're asking about, I've got written down about fee increases.
I got to be honest, like I said, my iPad's playing up, and
No problem. We'll move on from there, Councillor Clement Williams. On to 16 then, please. 16. One for Craig again. And I have him first. Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, clarity, Mr. Griffiths. The line says reallocation of corporate joint committee funding. A reallocation isn't savings or income. Could you clarify, please?
Of course. So members be aware we have the Corporate Joint Committee, and Neath Talbot Council provides a number of different services to them. A lot of those come ultimately from my section. So I'm the management officer for the CJC. We provide democratic services support, data protection support, and general legal support there. We get some sums of money from the CJC ultimately for the provision of those services. So rather than sit in respect of a general account, we're going to be using that sum to, in essence, allocate against the work programs that are ultimately undertaken. So no changes in respect of any service delivery. It's just how we quantify the money ultimately that's come in to make sure that it's offsetting the work programs that we're actually undertaking.
Thank you, Craig. Councillor Jones, you happy?
I'm just wondering then, to push the point, if you're just moving it from one budget stream to another, should it in fact be included as a budget proposal? Because the money is not income, it's not savings, it's just vying it from one account to another.
Bring in Hugh on this one, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I think what Mr. Griffiths is saying is that even though we've received this income in the past, we've never actually budgeted for it. We've just taken it as being sort of additional income in year. So I think what we're saying now is we're building this into the base budget as an ongoing income line. So it is a reduction, excuse me, in a budget and additional income from a budgeting point of view. I think that's right, Craig, is it?
Yes, I take that absolutely. Yes.
Is that clear, Councillor Jones?
No, not really. If we are getting the money and we are receiving it as a council, it must be budgeted somewhere as income coming from the CJC. So we already are accounting for that money. How can we now say we haven't been accounting it, but we're now going to account for it? That doesn't make sense, unless I'm losing the plot here.
Okay, Hugh, please.
Sorry, I'll try and explain it more clearly. So we've been accounting for it in previous years when we've received the income. So we haven't included it as a budgeted line item, but we've accounted it for when we've received it and then taken it into Craig's in-year underspend in previous years. What we're saying now is actually, because we've got certainty of we're going to receive this income annually, we're building it in as an income line within the budget going forward. So I hope that makes sense. Happy to pick it up outside here if you need further clarification, Chair.
No,
Thank you, Hugh.
that's fine. The second explanation gives it a bit more clarity. Thank you, Hugh.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jones. I've also got Councillor Carol Clement Williams. I wonder if your query has been answered.
First of all, Chair, with a message of Charlotte Galsworthy to say, can you read her message in the chat?
Okay. Yeah, and what it is, I don't have the chat in front of me because my iPad's on each of the ones, so we'll have a little look a second.
It says, I'm dealing with hospital matter at the moment from my dad.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, Alison has informed me already now. Obviously, in between, I hadn't received it because I'm not getting the chat on mine. Okay, but we'll leave Charlotte out for now, and she'll bring any issues up outside of the meeting. Okay.
Yeah.
On that, Councillor Clement Williams, the answer to the question you were going to ask for SCS, has it already been covered?
16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Moving along. Sorry, turning my page. We're on to SCS 17, specific contracts, and I have Councillor Carol Clement Williams again, please.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I'm hoping that this is just clarity with the review of the mobile telephony, just to ensure that sometimes they'll say, oh, if somebody hasn't got a desk, we'll make sure that they would have a phone or whatever. But my concern here is, like, someone like my street guy, is very rarely at his desk, although he has a desk. Just to need to make sure, and especially since COVID, they don't have their own desk numbers anymore, really. It's on Teams. But if they're out in the community, they may not be able to respond to that. So just to ensure that the staff that need to be get hold of will be able to get hold of.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Can I bring Chris Owen in on this one, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Specifically looking at where we have mobile phones across the organisation that aren't being fully utilised, and it's making sure that we're proactively reviewing the contracts and cancelling where needs be, so we're not incurring costs for those contracts. This is also aligned, though, to a review that we've just undertaken of the photocopier estate across the organisation. Obviously, in light of reduced usage that we have in certain photocopiers, we've looked at where there is usage of less than 3,000 prints a year, and we're actually taking those copiers out so that we can reduce the estate while still make sure that the facility is available where it needs to be.
Thank you, Chris. Does that answer your query, Councillor Clement Williams?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. On to SCS 18, please. Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you. Similar question that I asked earlier, Mr. Owen. A review of service level agreements, and you've got £20,000 there. Again, it says saving income generation. It doesn't say whether it's a cut in service level agreements or an increase in service level agreement costing. But as far as that is concerned, basically that's posh terms for internal recharging. The internal recharging scheme was also included in the 23-24 budget. It's listed at Appendix 5, Item 12 of internal recharging. We never had a result in relation to that. But if that is an increase, then that will have knock-on effects to the budgets of other departments across the council, because digital technology is covered by every department. And I'll just give one example. IT coverage in relation to membership through democratic services. If you were supporting democratic services with the provision of IT officers or services, then any increase on that SLA or internal recharging will have a knock-on effect to their budget and their savings. So just to have one line in there which says you're going to save or increase £20,000 is a bit ambiguous. Can you clarify further where this is an increase on recharging to departments or not? Because it'll have a massive impact, albeit small, across the council in relation to the service that you provide, which affects every department. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. If you can give some more detail, please. Right.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Jones. So within digital services, we have a number of income lines which are directly related to some of the service level agreements that we have in play with externally funded organisations. So for the likes of Sutra, for example, we provide the digital provision to the Sutra as an organisation. They fully recoup that funding from Welsh Government. So that's money that comes in directly to pay for our service level agreement. We also have service level agreements in place with other local authorities who are using some of the digital applications that we've developed over the years. So this is specifically looking at all of those externally funded elements, making sure that they're still fit for purpose and that the services that we're charging for are the services that they're using, and truing it up effectively, which will result in the additional £20,000 of income into the organisation.
Very clear. Thanks, Chris. Councillor Jones, are you happy?
Yeah, so for the record, this is only external SLAs.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Moving along to SAS 19. First up, I have Councillor Sean Percy, please.
Yeah, diolch, David, thank you. Just a brief one, really, in terms of how confident are we that we can meet that income target in the next financial year? We've been looking at some of these options for a long time, so I'm just curious what's developed, really.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Percy. As you'll be aware, CCTV moved back to 24/7, 365 a year last January. Since that point, we've been actively looking across the organisation and wider as to how we can continue to build the service. I'm pleased to say that one of the bids that we've put into the Shared Prosperity Fund to put a camera network into Pontardawe Town Centre and to extend the existing camera network in Britain Ferry has been agreed. One of the elements of that will result in an SLA now with those town councils, an increased one for Britain Ferry and a new one for Pontardawe, which will result in additional funding or income, I should say, into the CCTV service. What we've also done, though, and it'll be in place from the end of this financial year, is review the security provision in Tregellis Court, which is currently manned by a full-time security guard. So there's going to be a saving in the region of £90,000 to £95,000 in terms of security that we don't have to put into Tregellis Court, because it'll be operated from a remote barrier control in the CCTV control room. So I'm very confident that that figure will be achieved, essentially.
Thank you, Chris. Quite some good news there. We won it. Councillor Percy, you happy with that response?
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Rob Jones, please.
You lost me now, Chair. I didn't think I had a question on this one.
I've got it down as CCTV control, the benefits and the delivery.
No, not me, Chair.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Carol Clement Williams, please.
Yeah, just checking. I am, Chair. I know there was talk about the CCTV taking on work for the lifeline at one point. There's a list of things at the end, and alarm line, monitoring, concierge. Does that include the oh, sorry, I've gone blank. Does it include the lifeline service? And if so, I've got concerns that we don't hire the fee for that, because I declare an interest. I've got a lifeline here for my husband and I pay it. It's not a problem. But I've spoken to other elderly people who have fallen and said, you know, you need to get a lifeline in now. And they've said they would, but they can't afford it. So just checking fees on that wouldn't go up, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Chris, some issue on this?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. No, the alarm lines that we're talking about here are specifically things like alarm lines into schools, where they have a current security firm monitoring the alarm line, and it's whether we could offer a cost-effective service to run it out of the CCTV control room, so not the social services lines.
Thank you, Chris. Is that clear, Councillor Clement Williams? Lovely, thank you. Moving along to SES 21. And it's back to Councillor Carol Clement Williams, please.
Yes, Chair. It's there's a few places where it's said about removing vacancies from the structure. Again, we got concerns really about putting pressure on other people with the remodelling and restructuring of places. Just ensuring that we're not leaving ourselves with too much pressure on staff that are left.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. So from a digital services perspective, these vacancies that we're referring to here specifically relate to the modern apprenticeship roles that we put into the structure as part of the restructured digital services a couple of years ago. They haven't been filled to date. And whilst I acknowledge that it could impact our pipeline of talent coming into the organisation, slightly different to the answer earlier, we're actually looking at some of the opportunities with Welsh Government funding around digital apprenticeship specifically, because they recognise it as a high priority recruitment area, and whether they could fund some posts coming into the organisation. So we're constantly trying to tap up those opportunities to bring those resources in to drive that pipeline forward.
Thanks, Chris. It's nice to hear the Welsh Government are being proactive on that. Yeah. Councillor Clement Williams, you happy with that?
Oh no, that's good, because it is a concern, you know, that we do continue to do this. We've had recruitment problems, as you'll all be aware, over the years with different skills sets. So I think the apprenticeships are really, really important, and it was a concern that we might be losing that. So if we're replacing it with something, a funding by someone else, then that's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. I have Councillor Rob Jones down next.
No, it's been answered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Moving along, SCS 22, back to Councillor Cara Clement Williams, please.
I think that's been covered by the last one, really, is you know, as long as we're not putting people under too much pressure, Chair.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Cara Clement Williams. We're moving off the SCSs now onto the Cooperative COP 1, and I have Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The reduction in the revenue budget set aside for energy efficiency, that's a £1.8 million. I'm wondering, in this year's 23-24 budget, there was £2.8 million set aside for energy efficiency. Is this related to the savings, because that money hasn't been spent? If not, where is this savings likely to be made? If Hugh Jones could possibly enlighten me.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can I bring Hugh on this one, please?
Yep, certainly. So you were correct in your first statement, Councillor Jones. This is a reduction, a proposed reduction of that £2.8 million budget down to £1 million per annum going forward. What we have been able to do this year is to try and identify external sources of funding to try and fund some of the energy work. The Welsh Government has lots of money around to do energy efficiency work, so we're trying to tap into that where we can. And also the investment when the programme comes forward is going to be more in terms of capital investment, so we need to include the funding in the capital budget, not the revenue budget. So we're still leaving £1 million, well, in these proposals, £1 million in the revenue budget going forward, because we've recognised we need to strengthen the actual energy team within Nicola Pearce's directorate. So there are some job adverts out at the moment, which you will see, and when they were filled, they'll help us then be able to deliver a much wider energy and decarbonisation programme. So that you're correct in your first assertion. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Quite encouraging. Is that clear, Councillor Jones?
Yeah, it is clear, but in essence here, what you're saying, there's an underspend in the allocated money for this year's budget, so that we are clear, and that money then is going to be put down as a saving going forward, not an underspend in this year's budget. Is that what you're saying?
We have used some of that 2.8 million in this year's revenue budget to fund energy costs within, we're proposing to use some of that 2.8, I should say, to fund energy costs in schools and within public lighting and civic buildings, because we've had overspends in those areas. So some of this budget will be used to fund those overspends. There will be a residual underspend in this year, you're quite correct. And then going forward, we're trying to permanently take 1.8 million out of that 2.8. So I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Hugh. Councillor Jones?
It makes sense, yes, but you know, I still see a dichotomy in relation to an underspend in the money this year and then a saving in next year using the same money, because that's in essence what it is. But there we are, fine.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Moving along to COP 2, and first up I have Councillor Sean Percy, please.
David, thank you. Yeah, obviously noting the £1.5 million income now for the financial year after next for the council tax premium. I wanted to ask you if there's been any analysis on what the tapering down of that income would look like over time. Obviously, if the policy is effective at reducing the number of long-term empty properties and second homes, we won't have an income stream to rely on in the long term. So I wonder what analysis we've done on how that income will reduce over time as the policy is effective, because I can note that up to 28-29, it's blank at the moment. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Over to Hugh, please.
Yep, thanks, Councillor Percy. So in terms of this proposal, which will be back in front of the Cabinet before the end of March to make a decision on, you will know, obviously, we went out to consult back in June. At that point in time, we had 892 long-term empty properties and 525 second homes. I wouldn't expect the introduction of a premium to particularly have a huge impact on the number of second homes, but hopefully the intention is, as you say, that it does actually reduce the number of long-term empty properties. When I put that report together in June, based on the figures, we would have looked to generate additional £2 million worth of income based on that number of properties. So what I've done here is to be prudent and only assume £1.5 million for 25-26, but obviously we will have to assess that. So as I say, I've already taken £500,000 off the potential income in terms of what I've assessed here for the year after next, and subject to obviously member the decision before the end of March. There will be movement in the property market as we inform householders of the premium to come in, and obviously we'll have to adjust if it does come down from more than 2 to 1.5 to below that. We'll have to adjust that saving or income figure going forward into 25-26. So at the moment I've taken a prudent 25% approach, but we will keep an eye on it as if and when members agree it going forward prior to April 2025. So,
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Percy, you happy?
Fairly happy, I suppose. I think what I'd like to see is, I guess, some forecasting in future years about that income tapering down, just so that we've got some understanding as to, when we're looking at these budgets, as much as you've given maybe a conservative estimate of 1.5 million. If that is the figure, it will still taper down if the policy is successful. So I think that's just what I'd like to see, is that at least an estimate of that future trend, so we're not relying on income that we're actually actively trying to reduce, if you catch my drift.
Yeah, I think, Councillor Percy, if the Cabinet are minded to approve that in March, then going forward, probably on a monthly basis, we will keep an eye on the number of long-term empty and second homes and just see what the trend looks like going forward, to see whether that £1.5 million will be deliverable or not. As you say, if the policy is successful, all those long-term empty homes will be back occupied, but we'll wait and see as the year goes on, because obviously we've got to give householders 12 months notice, which is why we need a Cabinet decision before the end of March. We will then give people notice that premium will be coming in, and obviously people will then have a year then to do whatever they need to do in terms of arranging their own personal circumstances. So thank you, Chair.
Many thanks, Hugh. You happy, Councillor Percy? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. 2 questions from me, Hugh. Definition of long-term. You've said that they've got to give 12 months notice. What is going to be the definition of a long-term empty property? And again, the devil's in the detail. You talk about premiums. What premium are we talking about in relation to second homes and the empty homes offsetting against standard council tax for banded properties? Because in some authorities, they charge 50% of the banded rate in, others charge 100% of the banded rate in, and there are some that charge far more than the 100% to discourage second home and empty homes. So in order for you to arrive at your figure for the 24-25 budget, is that right? No, 25-26 budget. What are the premiums that you're looking at, and what is the definition of long-term empty, please?
Thank you, Councillor Jones. So I bring Hugh back in, please.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Jones. So a long-term empty dwelling is defined as a dwelling which is both unoccupied and substantially unfurnished for a continuous period of at least 1 year, so longer than a year, basically. We have consulted on 100% premium, so that's obviously paying twice as much council tax. And again, it'll be a matter for the Cabinet to make a decision when it comes back in March. As you say, lots of councils charge more than that in terms of second homes to try and deter holiday homeowners and things like that. So, yeah, I hope those are the 2 questions you asked. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Councillor Jones, are you happy?
Yeah, again, just for clarity here, when you said double the premium, so are you saying that if you pay council tax on £1,000 for a property, whatever band, you will be paying £1,000, or are you saying as 100% premium, you're talking of £2,000? So we are clear, and this will apply to both empty and second homes.
Yeah, the latter. So if the council tax is £1,000, normally the household will have to pay £2,000.
There we are, and that applies for both empty and second home.
The consultation was for that on long-term empty and second homes. Yes, as I say, we will have to take on board the consultation feedback and give advice to the cabinet, and then the decision obviously will happen before the end of March. So, but that was the consultation proposals. Yes, Councillor Jones. Yeah, spot on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That clarifies it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Just moving along, we're nearly there now. Some of the 2023-2024 budget suggestions. I have one. I think it's one. I'll have a check later. Councillor Carol Clement Williams would like to ask a question on number. If I find it myself,
34,
sorry. 34, yeah. It's got off the page. On number 34. Thank you, Carol.
Sorry. Yeah, it was in the budget line for last year, the community lottery. It said that the council didn't think it was feasible. I didn't necessarily agree with that, because it's once it's all set up, it won't cost the council anything much, and it would be the voluntary sector that would get the benefits. But it says then that the director of MPT, Council for Voluntary Services, was considering it. Is there an update on that? Do we know if they took it up or not?
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. Hugh, please.
Yeah, I think the chief executive had a conversation with the director of NPT CVS, and it's something that they will look at, but as it says in the note there, not until probably 24-25, because they've got other things on their plate. So I think that's the update on that, Chair.
Thank you, Hugh. Are you happy with that, Councillor Clement Williams?
Well, yeah, yes, and it's if it's them that's taking it up, it's out of our hands. But it is an opportunity for some of the third sector to get extra monies. But what I would like to say, Chair, if it's okay with you, maybe I don't know where else to say it, but wanted to thank everyone who's put the work into these reports today. I know as much as anyone that this is a huge amount of work, and I've always thanked the staff, and I'd like to do the same. If Hugh could please cascade that down. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clement Williams. I've got Councillor Rob Jones down. I don't know whether it's already been covered already, Councillor Jones. I did have you down.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned it earlier, the item 12, I think it is. Hold on, let's see if I can find it quickly. Yeah, Appendix 5, item 12, the internal recharging, because there's been a lot talk of SLAs. I'm just wondering, is there any update, because that's an in-year budget that may have a knock-on effect with our budget for the 24-25 period.
Hugh, please.
Yeah, we are constantly trying to work on reducing internal recharging and bureaucracy. So if I just give you an example of one thing that we've introduced this year, so we've moved on to automated payments of invoices in a specific sector, so home care. And I think we've reduced the number of invoices passing through our payments team by 750 invoices a month we've been able to take out through working with Noelwyn and Chris's team. So, and then we've been able to allow somebody who wanted to leave the organisation to go and not be replaced. So we're also doing some work in terms of robotics, in terms of, well, we've got a long established now process around DBS checks being processed by robots, and we're trying to expand that work into other areas. So whilst it may not specifically be internal recharging as such, we are constantly trying to look at moving, taking away people out of processes where they can be done as efficiently by other means. So it's always on my radar, because I can't stand bits of paper. I can't stand, we've done this since 1996. I can't stand the fact people just sign things for the sake of it. So yes, Councillor Jones will always review in our processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Quite encouraging. Councillor Jones, are you happy?
Yeah, final point for me, if I may, Chair, with your indulgence. I have mentioned it a couple of times that the whole report is a savings and income generation proposals. We do need clarity on whether these are plus or minus, as in savings or income, because the report doesn't distinguish between the two. And I would be grateful if, when the final reports come with these line by line, that it gives us some idea as to whether it's a saving or an income generation. It makes it a lot easier to keep track. If officers could take that on board, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Yeah, it's duly noted, I think. I'll bring Hugh back in. Thank you.
Yeah, ironically enough, Councillor Jones, it's a conversation that we've had in the office last week about the need to actually split these out so they're transparent in terms of what's actually a saving and what's additional income, which will make it easier to track going forward. So when the final report comes forward, if I can actually fit all the detail on a page, we will definitely split them out between those two categories. So thank you for raising that.
Thank you both.
Well,
Councillor Sean
I'm
Percy,
available
please.
for hire, Hugh, at a reasonable rate under an LSA if you want the advice.
I'd have to internally recharge you, I'm sorry.
Thank you both. Councillor Sean Percy.
Yeah, David, thank you. Yeah, I did flag this in pre-briefing. Again, this is Appendix 5 budget suggestions, but also refers to Appendix 7 and the accommodation strategy. Just like to get a little bit of clarity around the item for limiting external room hire / developing an internal room hire offer. So it's item 6 and 7 on Appendix 5, page 34. And then in the Appendix 7, it refers to an income target of £100,000. And then in the timeline, it states that will be is targeted to be complete by March 2024. So is that £100,000 targeted saving included within the budget here somewhere, or is that something that is going to be added into the budget after the consultation as something that's still been ongoing? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Can I bring Ogwyn in on this one, please?
Diolch, Councillor Percy. So, yeah, you're quite right. In terms of that 100k, it's a line within the environment's element of the budget. So when we talk about and the work we did around the accommodation and the work that Craig and his team did around identifying routine spend, so we did quite a bit of analysis on where money was being spent, and we identified a significant amount being spent on external room hire. And that 100k is a reduction in that overall spend on external room hire. Part of the work we're doing in terms of the accommodation review is proposing options to increase the capacity within Port Talbot Civic for additional meeting rooms and conference facilities, so that service areas have the opportunity to use them and no cost, or to recharge back against grant-funded opportunities as well. So it's a mixed bag, I guess, but it's a line that appears actually in the environment budget side of things, Councillor Percy.
Thank you, Ogwyn. Councillor Percy, you happy?
I don't know if, again, just for clarity, I'm looking at the environment lines in the budget. There's accommodation review phase 2, phase 3 that refer to rationalisation of buildings and depots, but I can't see a reference to this particular item. I think that's why I asked the question, was to understand where it was falling in the budget, as to whether it had been included in this table or not.
I just coming in. I think this does fall under environment. I think, Councillor Percy. So we'll leave it for the environment scrutiny committee. Is that okay?
I'll pick it up tomorrow if that's the case. No problem.
Fine. You did mention earlier you probably would. Hey, thank you very much. Thank you. Just looking up a second. Councillor Charlotte Goldsworthy, please.
Hi, sorry about that. I have been listening though. In regard to the assets, I'm assuming Noelwyn, this is to you. When you actually look at an asset, do you actually look at it as what a cost continually, or rather than a saving? Because obviously a number of years ago, when the library, my own library was threatened closure, when we actually did it, what it was actually saving us from obviously people going there like a warm hub sort of thing, rather than being within our social services. it was actually saving us a considerable amount of money. So again, what my concern is sometimes the way in which we look at disposing of our assets or using them, we're not actually looking at it with an open mind of what it could actually generate in, and it's always a cost.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy. We'll bring Noelwyn in on this one, please.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy. It's probably an item to pick up at tomorrow's environment meeting. And I'm venturing into an area which is not my area of expertise with regards to assets. But you are right. I think when you do dispose of an entire asset, then there's a significant saving to the authority. Clearly, there are kind of side costs with regards to how you dispose of that asset. If it was a demolition of an asset, then there are costs involved to achieve that. So what I am aware of is that would be something that you could potentially ask the environment scrutiny tomorrow with regards to some of the detail around how they approach assets and assets removals. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Thank you, Noelwyn. Councillor Goldsworthy, is that okay?
Yeah, but I think I didn't explain that properly. It was more the fact of they don't see the asset as generating an income because the way they're just seeing it as a cost. So again, when that exercise was taken, it was done, it was actually generating a lot of money by saving residents coming into social services. So the assets sometimes they'll get and dispose of because they're only looking at what is costing them rather than being open-minded on what is actually saving them.
Yeah, we understand the benefit. You're looking at the benefits on a wider thing, aren't you? Yeah. The benefits to us all. Okay.
Yeah, that's
everyone's. Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy. We'll return to the scrutiny agenda now, or proceed with the scrutiny agenda. We've gone through all the items line by line, very thorough, fair play. We're on to agenda item 6, the forward work programme. This item is just for noting, unless members have any comments. Councillor Carol Clement-Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Just noting that at the beginning of the year, we had a meeting to discuss things that we would like to see on the agenda for this meeting. And a list was made. There's no reference to it in this. I would be interested to see what list we had and which ones we've seen and which ones we haven't yet. Also, we did agree at one point, I seem to remember, that when we were asking questions about having an update, and we've been promised them from officers, that there would be a list and that it would be brought forward to every meeting until it dropped off. So is there any plan to do this now? And I would like to see what was on the list and what we've seen and what we haven't. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clement-Williams. We'll bring Alison in a second, please.
Thank you, Chair. So after the forward work programme item, we met with officers and we went through the items which we've brought forward and programmed in our forward work programme. There were some items which were already going to Cabinet Board, so they wouldn't appear on a forward work programme, and perhaps I could have been a bit more clearer about the items that weren't specifically for scrutiny but have come to us in other ways. With regards to the committee action, I'm going to send you an update of that and I'll pop it onto the next agenda as well, so it goes directly to this meeting as well.
Thank you, Alison. Are you happy with that, Councillor Clement-Williams?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think that it is important to have that list of promises of work that would be brought back to us and to keep it with this agenda until they fall off, because you know what it's like. We've got so many officers have got so many meetings, we've got so many meetings, and it's easy to forget to give those updates that were promised. But yes, thank you, Alison.
Thank you, Councillor Clement-Williams. Yeah, fair point, I think. Yeah, we'll hope to endeavour to include it from now on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On to agenda item 7, urgent items. You'll be pleased again to know that I have none. As we're not scrutinising anything on the Cabinet sub-agenda, I believe that brings our business to a close. Many thanks to all who've contributed this afternoon. Obviously, we've been very, very thorough, as I think we should be with the budget, to be honest. And many, many thanks for all those who posed the questions, and more importantly, those who actually responded to them. I think we've had some encouraging signs as well. I know perhaps what we're hearing isn't all what we'd like to hear, and we're in difficult times, I think. But as long as we keep working together and hopefully come up with as many proposals as we can to retain our workforce, I think, and obviously we've got to have a balanced budget at the end of the day. If anybody can think of any other suggestions, even at this stage, then we'd surely look at them and welcome them. So many thanks to all officers. Huge thanks to all you and all your team for all, obviously, the immense amount of work you've been doing over the last year, because we are in extreme circumstances, I think, at the moment. So many thanks all. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you.
Diolch.